We turn now to the Superstorm Sandy effect. Studies suggest that Sandy, like other recent storms, such as Maria and Harvey, had a disproportionate impact on low-income neighborhoods and communities of color. A question now arises about the cause of environmental justice and how to address it. Joining us with some insight on all of that, Andrea Colon, who's a community engagement organizer for the Rockaway Youth Task Force, a social justice organization comprised principally of young women of color. And also with us, always happy to have Jarrett Murphy, executive editor of City Limits New York. So welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Andrea, let me start first with you and ask you about your personal experiences with Sandy. How did it impact you?
So I live in a building. So in terms of like losing a home, like I didn't experience that, but we did lose power for about a month. And I just remember like I couldn't go to school. Everything was just closed down. Whatever we had to eat before the storm was what we had to stick with for like about an entire month. And it was difficult, just seeing my community in a state that I had never seen it before.
And where was this? Where in New York specifically?
In Far Rockaway, yeah. So in Far Rockaway, we got hit pretty hard by the storm. I luckily lived in an area that was like, it's about an 8-minute walk to the beach, so it wasn't, there wasn't as much flooding or like homes being impacted as much as those who live right by the shore. Or by the bay, because the bay and the ocean literally like
they met. They
yeah.
became one, which was the problem.
And yeah.
How about in the first let's say weeks afterwards? What did you see in terms of efforts to get people back on their feet, power to remedy the structural problems?
I didn't really see that like in my community, but what I did see, because I was taking a class in Brooklyn, a Saturday class, and so I went to the west side of the peninsula, like to take the bus, public transportation, and I saw like Red Cross, like RVs kind of that came with like resources and food, like people just handing out a lot of like materials and food that was needed in that community, and it just became like clear to me the racial disparities.
So that you didn't see that in your community?
No, I didn't see that in Far Rockaway, and it was just very apparent to me at the age of like 12 that there was a disparity happening.
Jarrett, you folks have been doing a lot of reporting on this. What about this notion of the disparity, as Andrea says, between the low-income communities, the damage that was done, and more important, the remedies for it, and other more well-to-do communities?
So the storm itself obviously doesn't discriminate, but vulnerability is not even across the population, and it intersects with income, with race. Everything
in what way?
Well, everything from the actual geography, right? I mean, historically, places that were more vulnerable tended to be places where low-income people found a place to live. You have the fact that low-income people are less likely to afford to be able to evacuate because it's pricey to get a hotel room, less likely to have the room or money to stash supplies. In some storms, you've even seen the fact that there is, sadly and frighteningly, a disparity in who knows how to swim. You know, for a person who knows how to swim, a flood is a scary thing. A person who doesn't know how to swim, 5 feet of water is potentially a death sentence. And so that's when the storm is about to hit, when it does hit. And then afterwards, you have the fact that less likely to have flood insurance, less likely to be able to kind of fill the void between when benefit payments come in and the repairs you need to make on your house just to make it livable. That's much harder. After Sandy, there were programs to buy out some properties that were in vulnerable areas. If your mortgage is underwater, if you have split deeds, some of the problems that affect low-income homeowners, those programs are much less accessible. So
you can't really cash out and go say, okay, I'm going to take my money.
From beginning to end, from preview to aftermath, there just is an elevated degree of risk for people who are low income.
Andrea, let me talk about your organization that you're doing. How did it get started, and what's its purpose?
So the organization was an idea. So before Sandy, 2011. Of young people having a voice and a say in local politics, and just a voice in general, being that young people don't usually get that platform or a seat at the table when it comes to important conversations. And it wasn't until after Sandy that we stepped in and said, like, if we're not getting the resources and the help that we need post Sandy, then we have to do it ourselves, provided water, food, like medical attention to folks who lived in like high-rise buildings. And was really that help that our community needed. And today we've shifted our focus and work more on social justice issues such as the school to prison pipeline, food justice. We have a half-acre urban farm, which even ties into like if another hurricane, when another hurricane hits,
right.
Our farm actually helps sort of like prevent damage in terms of like water and everything. There's like being like studies and yeah.
How about the community that you were in at the time? How has it recovered?
Well, our boardwalk is back. It took a while. But in terms of homes, there's still actually some people who haven't moved into their homes. I actually had a friend who it took her like 3 years to move back into her home after Sandy. And it just causes like displacement really. And yeah.
In looking at government policies, government actions, what have you found in terms of any proposals or perhaps even concrete things that have been done since Sandy that might help to ameliorate this, we were saying if, but we should say when the next hurricane hits?
Well, the city has been engaged in a multi-billion-dollar effort to shore up defenses in some of the more vulnerable neighborhoods. That effort is lacking in a lot of places, or lagging, I should say. It's not gotten nearly far enough. I think the thing that comes out in a lot of situations that people have looked at is that planning is really key. It's when people are in an emergency and chaos, making decisions on the fly, that's when more vulnerable people tend to get hurt worse. So to the extent that the city wants to have a conversation about the future of climate change, about whether there are some neighborhoods that perhaps aren't going to be livable anymore, about really, really serious resiliency measures, doing that ahead of time and having those plans well in place for the inevitability of more severe storms, that's really key, not just to protecting everybody, but particularly to protecting more vulnerable people, low-income people.
Last question for you. That we oftentimes hear the notion of gentrification around the city, and there were some suggestions after the storm that this might be an opportunity for developers to kind of swoop into areas where low-income folks were living and basically, for the reasons you mentioned before, cannot afford now to rebuild, and say, okay, this is close to the water, we can make this much more attractive property, which will, of course, have a lot to do in changing the nature, the complexion, literally and figuratively. Are you seeing that?
Well, it's interesting. Andrea talked about the bay and the ocean meeting. We also see an existing wave of gentrification that predated the storm meeting with whatever process has been triggered by it itself. And yeah, we've seen that lots of places. I mean, New Orleans, I think, it was not just the financial vulnerability, but the fact that people suddenly were alerted to this great city by all the coverage of the horrible storm. To some degree, I think that's what's happened in the Rockaways. There is some evidence of that. Disentangling it from the other gentrification is hard to do. The important thing is that people who are vulnerable need help from the government and responsible actors in the financial industry to make sure that they aren't taken advantage of, whether it's because of a storm, a bad mortgage 10 years ago, loss of income from a job, whatever.
And last question for you. Are you seeing those changes at all taking place in your neighborhood and others?
Yeah, I would definitely say I think it has to do with I think the biggest factor is like that attention that the community gets after like a disaster like that. So I definitely did see that the Rockaways got a lot of attention, and it could be good and it could be bad in the way that, it's near the water, it can be made more beautiful. And with all the development that's happening in Rockaway, I think it's important to be cautious of like the potential harms of that in like displacing families and causing gentrification. And I've seen some changes. It is scary or just something different and that I'm not used to. But yeah, we'll see how it plays out. I hope the city does take an active role in taking like anti-gentrification measures in housing developments.
Andrea, I want to thank you for spending some time and the very valuable work that your organization is doing. And Jared, great reporting as always for you guys. So it's always good to talk with you. All right, you both be well.
You too.